You know when you look up at the sky and you've got this like red kite birds. Do you know what birds I'm on about? There's like massive birds that are just all over the place at the moment in the sky.
Kind of. I think I know what you're on about. Yeah.
Don't you find it
Is it
amazing
bird?
how yeah when you imagine a kite, right, and how when the kite moves and the wind blows it that way and it blows that way. You look at the bird, right? We literally have made kites and planes based on how birds fly. Because you see how the bird just glides. It's exactly how a plane glides. Like once it's up in the
Yeah.
sky,
Yeah.
the plane just has to turn a little bit and it moves. And you find that amazing.
Yeah. It's like it makes me jealous if I'm quite honest. Imagine if we were able to do that. Life would just be so easy. But yeah, it's also really cool how like we've taken inspiration from other animals like birds to make planes and stuff like that. It's
Yeah, like when you think about how even fish they swim in the water, they glide with the current and they don't put much energy in. You look at a bird, it's effortless. They just glide with the wind and they can move like miles across the earth just by gliding. If they get the wingspan right based on the wind.
yeah, it's it's crazy how like everything just fits in together. Like I don't know, just being up so high and having the aerodynamics specifically go to what direction you need to go into, but without even doing anything. Yeah, pretty amazing.
Are you worried about the flu taking out everyone?
Do you know what? I really am not. Um, I actually work in an escape room, so it's quite a touristic place, and we get so many people coming in when we hand them like costumes and stuff like that. Like, oh no, do we have to wear these? The virus, and I'm just a bit like, well, if you're that scared, just stay at home. Don't pay to come to something. But I honestly don't think that people need to be worried. I think that the only people that have really been really damaged by it are like older people and people with underlying illnesses. I think there's a really big hype, media hype, and people shouldn't be afraid to go out and do things. You have your chances are of getting other things are more higher than that, I think. But I
Yeah.
do think it's something to be taken seriously. But obviously, just take precaution with what you're doing.
So like man has an immune system like any other animal, and whatever it gets that isn't supposed to be in it will fight off. And yeah, the old people are the people that are vulnerable because their immune is weak. But really, it's no different to any other flu, is it?
Sorry, it
Really, it's no different to any other flu. It's just over
no, not
exaggerated
really.
by media.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's right. Also, there's a lot of other statistics like the statistics of homicides in certain areas are a lot higher than the flu, the coronavirus. Sorry, and even like the statistics of suicide is quite a lot higher as well. But we don't have that much publicity or talk go on about that. But yet, the coronavirus has blown up really, really massively and has
Yeah, if
caused
you
quite a
take
big
into
effect.
consideration how many people die from food poisoning, it's probably so much more than the amount of people that die from the flu. But yeah, because you don't hear
Yeah.
about it, you don't know about it. What's amazing is that the stock market has literally plunged, all because of what you hear in the media. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can spread and infect people, but people are reacting and selling their shares and stuff because of what they hear, which is then what they see on the stock market. And if it goes down, they think, fuck, everyone else is going to sell, so I've got to sell. And then literally so much money has been lost. At what point do you think that it's going to bounce up, or like anything, will it just go?
I do think, hello.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah. No, I do think it will bounce back up. I think that these things kind of pass, they kind of blow over. Um, And I think it will be once everyone has a bit more control over the virus and like the number of cases have gone down, because that's what kind of always happens after anything like this goes on. Like not too long ago, we had the Ebola crisis, we had swine flu, and it happened in similar patterns of what the coronavirus has happened. Just the process of the information, that is, not the actual medical and science behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything has peaks and troughs. Everything comes back around. Like stock market will go up and it will go down. Flus will always come around. Floods, there'll always be certain parts of the world that floods, and then the other parts too dry, too hot, too cold, desert, snow. Everything has a way of balancing itself out. Like if you go in the ocean, you see how the fish eat the coral, and then new coral grows, and then other fish can eat off that coral, and then the sharks will come and eat loads of fish, and then
Do you think that's fascinating though? Like, sorry to change the subject, but in the ocean, like literally everything in the ocean has a specific part to play, without even like the sea urchins. Like, if the ocean dies out after one minuscule thing on the food chain, then it could be the end for like the earth and humanity, really.
Do you think if everyone went traveling that they'd see the whole world differently?
I think so, yeah. But differently in the retrospect of like it's everyone's personal different perception. I don't think many people can have the exact same perception of the world, because you just go places and have different experiences which kind of shape who you are and your thoughts. So yeah, I think everyone would see the world differently.
Because everything at the moment is online. Everything we see is online. Our consciousness is swarmed by stuff on every other part of the earth, as opposed to what's around us. Like we forget what's around us, and we seek everything that is not here because we see it online. So if you go traveling, you see the world from a different perspective and realize that there's more to life than what you see, and it will allow you to appreciate what you have rather than seek anything else. And then you see the places that people live and how they live, and how they're limited to food, and just how they don't have heating, and how their houses aren't very strong or whatever. You look back at your house and you think, wow, I may not have much heating, but I've got a massive house with a nice bed. Simple things like they live on the floor, they sleep on the floor. And then you come back to your bed and you realize, actually, I need to be grateful for the fact I have a mattress. So yeah, it opens up so much stuff that you would never see, that you become grateful for if you didn't go traveling. And I think that people are missing out if you don't go traveling.
Absolutely. And I think so. I've done a bit of traveling, and it's definitely made me see things in a different way. But I think what people who don't go traveling are aspiring to is just not reality, because all the stuff you see online, I'm going to use the word poses. I'm not saying everything, I'm not saying everyone, but there is a lot of fake lives being promoted through Instagram and Facebook. And I think people just get a different expectation of what reality is, and they don't go out there and see it for themselves. And if they do, it's not everyone, again, I just want to make that clear, but if these kind of people who are using social media do go out there, they're not necessarily going to be looking for the finer things in life or being island, because like it's just, they're just trying to find what these other people have, and it's very posy, and it's not, they might not be like enjoying themselves, but in that picture, you know, they may seem like they're having the time of their lives.
Yeah, put the camera back a little bit so I can see your whole face, because I'm just getting off your chin. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so obviously everything we know from like being youngsters, that everything online is often made up and it's bollocks basically, and out of their whole day, of their shitty day of doing nothing and being bored, they put up this picture of them like having a pina colada or on the beach or whatever, and it's superficial and it seems like they have this amazing life, and actually they don't. They have a life just like anyone else, often more boring than anyone else. The fact that they have to put their stuff on social media, because most people who aren't putting their stuff on social media live in their life, whereas most people who put their stuff on social media, they want to make it as if they have a good life, because they don't. And it's the complete opposite. And it's dangerous when you look online and you think that someone else has
especially how like there's like younger people being introduced to it. Like I remember when I was younger, I didn't have a phone, I didn't have this kind of access to the internet and stuff like that. But it seems to be the younger the generations get, the better access they have to it. And I actually heard something on a little debate that I watched, and someone said something quite interesting, and it was that children and the youth are now actually ahead of adults, and it's quite hard for them to like have an understanding on the technology and what these younger people are being exposed to without the adults knowing fully how that works. So it's quite unusual, because the first time in how many of the years children are progressed slightly ahead of adults.
Yeah, like everything online these days is accessible to anyone, and if adults aren't online because they're just living their life normally, or they don't have to use a smartphone, but kids are on their phone constantly, kids are going to know stuff that adults have no idea about, when normally adults are supposed to teach the kids what to do. The generation has flipped. So as you said, it's the first time where generations are flipped, where the adults are learning from the generation before, but it's not like they're learning from 20-year-old kids. They're learning from 10-year-old kids. And that's not how it works.
It's a bit dangerous as well, because they haven't really developed that experience in certain areas of life, and they haven't like even finished developing themselves. So the emotions that are attached to it is gonna actually stay with them, and like how they grow is going to be affected, because it's something that they know more than their parents. So yeah, it's a bit crazy to think how one little phone can do so much, but at the same time it can do so much good as well.
Do you think that there's going to be a point where there's going to be a reversal and everyone stops using social media in a way that they do, because they realize actually there is a better life than actually just sitting on my phone all day, and I can actually do stuff like walking and painting and real stuff?
Yeah. The optimistic side of me really wants to say yes. But the cynical side of me is saying I can't see it happening anytime soon. I think this massive superficial media has gone so mainstream that it's nothing the world has ever seen before. It's an obsession and an addiction, and people are using it in a really unhealthy way, but we don't really know how to get that under control. And I think it's going to take some time for us to understand in what ways we can use technology and social media to actually benefit us.
Does that mean that everything is going to be online? Like every job's going to be online, and shops and physical buildings aren't going to exist anymore? Like think about it, how many shops and companies are going bust or have gone bust, all because of everything that's going online. Like there's only going to be more of that. Even things like, supermarkets, Tesco's, for example, you couldn't think that'd ever go bust, but if everything's online.
I was actually thinking about this, I was thinking the other day, like if everything just goes online, like even stuff like I live in London, so we use Royal Mail. Like even stuff like that, like Royal Mail, like would we still be going to a physical post shop to go and post our stuff? Like, or would it just be a weird piece of technology online where someone picks it up and takes it? Even your like prescriptions, and go and get medication and stuff like that. They already do delivery for supermarkets like Tesco's, and but I think it happens with every generation as you go down. Like way before our generation, there was different shops for different things. Like you'd go to the baker's for your bread, and you'd go to the butcher's for your meat and your veg, and then it became one big shop. And now it seems like it's all now moving to the internet.
Yeah. Do you think that every company should sell everything just to keep up with everyone else trying to sell everything, or should companies stick to their niche? Just sell chicken if you're Nando's. Just sell burgers if you're McDonald's. Like fucking sell fish and everything.
I think it would be the more wise and tactical decision in terms of allowing enough jobs for everyone and enough people to go into different revenues and actually feel like they have a place in society. If everything moves online and if everything's put together, then there's less need for staff.
Yeah, so think about how Royal Mail will come and pick up your post as opposed to going to the post office. Is that really something that can work? You think about how many letters people post in a day and how many vans and cars and people would have to go everywhere.
Well, I wouldn't know particularly how it would work, but just the idea of like, would you have to go to the post office to send your stuff? Would that then change to some new way of technology doing it, like an Uber service or a delivery service or something like that?
These Uber drivers, it's good not having a boss and not having like permanent hours where you can just literally work when you want. But because everything's so expensive these days and the money isn't guaranteed, can anyone really use like Uber Eats as a form of income, or should it only be used as like part-time income, like a side hustle?
Mm-hmm. Interesting you say that.
Put the phone back a little bit.
I really don't know the answer to that one, but I don't really know too much about how like they work and stuff. But a lot of the people that I do meet when I do use an Uber seem like they're doing something else and it's not their only job, and it seems to benefit them, like students and a lot of people who like come here to search for work. They do like Uber job while they're trying out other jobs. I've met a few people that have come to London and started with Uber and had kept that job while they're looking for other work.
At what point do you think that everyone is going to be doing multiple jobs just to keep up with how much everything costs? Like one job isn't enough to ever really get a house or anything. And even if you have 3 jobs, it's just not enough, because then you think about how much an iPhone costs and then internet, Wi-Fi, then you've got to buy your dog food, then you go out and have drinks. Everything is like so expensive. Everything is like 4 times more than what they pay for it, and you're only earning X amount. That means you're never ever going to be able to have enough money to buy the things you want unless you borrow. And the more you borrow, the more you get into debt. Is it like people, they're literally just going to have so many jobs, they're not going to have a life because they're always working, and even then they're not going to be able to pay for all their stuff. So what's the point in any of it? We might as well just, what do you reckon, just borrow because that's the only option?
Well, it's a tough one because so many people already are like trying to hold down numerous jobs, and so many people already are borrowing. And if you just look at some people's stories, especially in terms of borrowing, like from credit cards companies and loan companies, it always ends up that people end up a bit worse unless they're already financially stable before they take out that loan or credit card. And I think it's not an avenue to go down, because I think they purposely target people who they know can't pay. Well, they're not targeting, but they will accept and approve loans for people who they know can't pay it back, or they just burn out doing so many jobs. But a lot of people manage to do many jobs. I know if I wanted to sustain a lifestyle, I would definitely try it and get as much work as I can.
So do you think that it's worth working like a slave just to live this modern life and being able to afford some simple things like £300 pair of earphones, which in the real world can take a week, like to save up and work. And that's before you've paid for any of the other stuff that you want, like a gym membership or whatever, or even clothes, for example, like £50 for a top.
Well, I mean, I think it just it depends on the individual and where your priorities are. Like me personally, I wouldn't spend £50 on a top or 200 on a pair of headphones, but that's just me personally. I would spend that money easily on a holiday or going on traveling. So that's what would make me happy. But if somebody else wanted to spend that money on a t-shirt and some headphones and that's what makes them happy, then fair enough, each to their own. But I think you've got to assess the situation when you're in it. So when you're working and you're working hard for these things, you've got to sort of assess if maybe you are actually happy and if it is worth going through that to have these items. I mean, we're living in a very materialistic world and it's forever growing and growing, this need to have objects and loads of different, things to make us feel better. But I think people are missing the point of why do you need to feel better?
Do you think, for example, if people can't walk their dog because they're lazy or they can't work, for example, that they should have a treadmill in the house and the dog walks on the treadmill whilst it's like tied up on a lead to the treadmill just to give it exercise?
I don't really want to comment on what other people think's good for their dogs, but me personally, if I had a dog and I didn't want to walk it, or if I couldn't, or yeah, I just wouldn't. I would try and find somewhere for that dog to go that I know it would get like well looked at, a better care that I could give for it.
You know how like Wi-Fi and 3G and electrical interference affects humans, right? Do you think people ever think about how it affects animals and dogs? Like dogs can see like spirits apparently, so they can see vibrations that we can't see. So if they can see Wi-Fi, well, that's the whole point. Can they see Wi-Fi and 3G in the house? Dogs are blind or they're colorblind. They can only see black and white or whatever. So does that mean that just because we can't see the Wi-Fi, they can't? Or can dogs actually see all the Wi-Fi and the energy and electromagnetic energy in a house?
Okay. Well, yeah, that's. I had no idea that this was the case. It's quite shocking, actually. I mean, how does that affect a dog? Does like how would they even process that? But I don't think people really care or look into the effects of how Wi-Fi and these things affect animals. I know there was a study on how 5G affects birds and their navigation, but other than that, that is the only ever like research or interest I've seen anyone take into how animals are affected by this.
Yeah, did you see the cows in a field on Google Maps? They were looking at the cows and the cows were all facing a certain direction, and then there was an electricity tower put up or something, and all the cows are facing all different directions. So that electricity thing fucks with their internal navigation system. So if that happens to cows, then what is it doing to dogs? Like, dogs sometimes how they can sense when you're coming back or, when you're whatever. So Wi-Fi, it is there and it does have an effect on humans, and therefore it must have an effect on dogs. And dogs hear like high frequencies, so they can hear certain sounds that we can't. So every electrical device has a frequency, which means that if dogs can only hear like high frequencies, they must be able to hear every single buzz and noise coming off every lamp, every light, every device. That must drive them crazy if they can actually
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah. And then like we as humans love dogs. Dogs is man's best friend. So where does that leave us? Like if it is distorting them, what are we going to do about that? You know, are we going to pick our iPhone over our pet or our pet over our iPhone? Or will we continue to just ignore it and let them feel this way? You know, it's a bit of a funny one that I'd never heard that had that effect on dogs.
That's the thing. I just thought about it now. I've never thought about it before. If dogs can hear sounds and see things that we can't, does that mean they can hear and see Wi-Fi? Because it's all to do with just like frequencies. That means that it's like looking, it's like going to Laser Quest and there's just lasers being shot everywhere. Is that what dogs can see? Just like Wi-Fi here, Wi-Fi there. And if they can see it, how is that affecting them? Like obviously, this energy affects humans, it does, but if animals are smaller and they're like made differently to humans for whatever reason, bigger in size, is it having a negative effect? And you know, some dogs are really fat. Does it make dogs overweight? Does it make dogs feel sick? Does it make dogs lose their appetite? Yeah, because like, you know, if radiation kills cells, for example, and all this energy is essentially radiation, just the vibration. It has to be having an effect on animals. And I've not actually thought about this before, apart from now. But it's interesting to see what your dog can see just because you can't see it.
I've always thought, yeah, that's quite interesting to like try and imagine what it's like seeing through any animal's eyes, really, because just the eyes, the scientific anatomy behind it is just so different to humans. So I always think it like, oh, what can my cat see right now? You know, yeah.
Yeah, because a cat, its eyes are further out, so they've got more of a 3D angle. So, for example, when you are in a field with a cow, for example, I don't know how often you're in a field with a cow, but when I'm in a field with a cow, I try and touch him on his back and he knows I'm coming and he moves away. I'm like, how the fuck can he see me? He's all the way like down there because he's so long. But yeah, I try and scratch his back. He can see me. And then you look at him. I can see his eyes facing that way, but I forget his eyes are 3D. So even though his eyeball's facing that way, he can actually see around here. So he can see me coming up to him. So you think about a cat and a dog. Can they see just forward like we can? I'm sure there is science that they can see whatever. But when you think about what can your dog actually see, like they say dogs are colorblind. Like to me, that's crazy because that means what I see they can't see, and what they see must be so boring. And then it makes everything like when you think about what your pet can see, it's like it's just fascinating. If dogs are colorblind, which apparently they are, the shit they must see just be boring.
How do they find out that dogs are colorblind? How would you test that?
I presume they take an eye off a dead dog or something. I don't know, and just dissect it and then work out is the part of the eye that sees color, is it there, is it not there, or I don't know, stretch the lens over something and then sort of see what color goes through it. I don't actually know. I haven't really thought about it.
I always think of random questions like that, like when I'm watching documentaries on satellites going out into space and them controlling it going to Mars and stuff like that. And how do they get it so accurate? How do they know how the pressure is and everything? It's so crazy the way scientists' brains work. The way technology is just advanced as well, really.
Do you ever look up at the sky and see a really, really, really bright, what looks like a star?
What, like loads of little dots?
No, obviously there's stars, but did you ever like see like a really bright star?
Like daytime. Oh, okay. A really bright star, yeah.
And that's actually a satellite. So you know,
Yeah.
satellites are up in the sky. When it turns, the sun reflects off it, and you can and it's a satellite. I always thought, for example, it was a star or a lantern. Like it wasn't moving. I thought it was a plane, but it wasn't moving. So when the satellite turns, there's sun that reflects on it, and it looks really bright, and that's why suddenly it just goes out as soon as it turns like that. The sun's not reflecting on it anymore. So when you go out tonight, or whatever, look up at the sky. If you see a really bright star, it's not actually a star; it's a satellite. And there's actually like loads now, because of technology and everything. There's more more satellites going up in the more satellites going up in the sky. So you should see more satellites. I mean, anyone can see them, like a reflection of a really like a bright star. It's not a star; it's a satellite. And if you do this, if you put your hands like this by your eye and close it and do that, and close it so you can just see like out the hole, you can actually see the satellite, because we only see by light, like reflecting on our eye. So if you like focus the light on something, then you'll see like more clarity in that thing. Try it. Look up at the star, do that, and you can see the satellite or the star.
While it's dark, right?
Yeah, I did that on the star and I did it on the satellite. There's a difference there. You can actually see the satellite. It's crazy.
Wow. Just your hand. That's weird.
Yeah, because when we see, it's just light. So if you focus the light on something, then you can see it easier.
Yeah.
And if the light's broad, you can't focus on that thing. So yeah, it's fascinating. I didn't even know that these satellites existed. But anyway, so you know, eclipses, like moon eclipses.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, imagine you're a bird, right, and you've got up for the day and it's bright, and you're, you know, going about your day, flying, having some worms, and all of a sudden it's dark. If you were a bird, what would you be thinking at that point? Would you be thinking, it's not bedtime? What would you be shitting yourself? What would you be thinking?
I think, I don't know. I think either they would be confused and start the routine that they do in whatever they do in the night, or they would have the sense and sort of understand that this is what's going on. I'm not sure. Animals seem to know about things better than humans. Like, I think dogs know when earthquakes are going to happen, stuff like that.
So you think that, for example, birds, they have been around for so long, longer than us, that they know, for example, when or why this is happening. They know that when the moon has an eclipse, that is just part of life, and they're used to it because they're just used to it. Like, it's ingrained in them, like their ancestors.
I don't think that's very plausible. No, but anything's possible. You never know. But it doesn't sound very likely.
Because, you know, like animals, they tune into the past thoughts of other animals. So how does a dog know to piss, like, every time he's on a walk? He just has a little piss, like he's marking his territory. How does he know to do that? How does a dog know to chase a squirrel if he's, like, never seen a squirrel before? But yet he wouldn't chase a pet inside your house. Like, there's certain traits that animals have that they haven't seen or were taught. It's just instinctive. So maybe birds know that when this moon suddenly, you know, when it suddenly becomes dark during the day, that it's just part of life, and they're not scared as we think they are, because they've been around for a long time, and maybe they're just used to it. They're tuning into the ancestors of the birds who've been here before. That it's okay, keep calm. No fox is gonna suddenly like come and eat you. Maybe they just know that shit.
Yeah, maybe it's all interesting and what's the word I'm looking for? Escapes me.
What's your interpretation of reincarnation?
Oh,
Put the
so
camera back.
I would love for it to all be true.
Go central more, so your face is in the middle. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think the philosophy of it is just a really good one to tap into, even if you don't necessarily believe it. It's a very interesting way of perceiving the universe, and it kind of makes sense to me personally through some experiences. And you know, a friend explained to me why deja vu happens, and to me at the time it made so much sense.
Why did he
That
tell you it happens?
So he says that we are these beings that are reliving life continuously, and we are going on a spiral. And every so often, when your self from different like universes and different times spiral across each other, that's when deja vu happens, and that you've had that moment already in your life. You've relived things like over and over again, and there's only sometimes that you remember doing it before in a past life.
So you believe in actual past lives where we've had another life, and therefore we will have another life in the future, and that's what deja vu is. Because if there was no past life and afterlife, there would be no deja vu. Would you say?
I wouldn't say that. No, I really don't know what I stand on it, but I just love things. I just love the idea of things being possible, and things that make a little bit of sense to me, I just don't dismiss. I've had a few experiences where I've really felt that this is the case. So I'm just not dismissing it, but I'm not exactly saying, yes, this is exactly what I believe. Because the truth is, I don't think anyone really knows what deja vu is. I mean,
I'll tell you
yeah.
my definition of deja vu, right? So let's say deja vu is an awareness that you've done something before, done something meaning thought about something, a thought, and then applied action to that thought. So if you've thought about something or visioned how something would plan out subconsciously or consciously, maybe you've dreamt it, and dreams are what you think about during the day, then your neurons have already fired up that vision or that thought. Most of the things we think about, we end up doing. So you think about tidying your bedroom, where you're going to put your new books, and how you're going to play this DVD or whatever. Well, if you've already thought about that, when you go to do it, your brain's going to be like, I've already done this. And it's not that you've already done it, it's just you were going to do it until you manifested that and did it. So deja vu meaning you feel like you've done it before. Let's say there's no past or afterlife, and it's just simply things that you've already thought about during your day in the past or whatever. That's what deja vu is, that you're now applying action to those thoughts you had in the past. And there's no past life or afterlife. It's just my neurons are fired up. I've got that feeling like it already happened. And then when I do it, it's like I've already done it. What do you reckon?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a very solid theory. Yeah, I do. Um, as you were saying it as well, it's I felt like I'd had this thought process as well a really long time ago. Deja vu is not really something so many people have many different ideas of what it is, and it's really quite hard to pinpoint because everyone's idea is very plausible. It makes sense every time I hear somebody else say something new on deja vu. But it also makes sense because when I've had deja vu before, I thought, oh, I've done this before, or did I just dream about it? I think I did dream about it. Um, yeah, and I had another friend tell me what he thought deja vu was, and he literally said to me that it is a scientific thing with your brain where it just lags, and you're doing something, and for a split second or 5 seconds or however long this moment lasts for you, that's a lag, and it's just taken a moment for your brain to process what's going on and what's happening. So you feel like you've done it again, but it hasn't. It's just taken a little while to catch up.
That's interesting. I've not thought of it like that before. That makes sense. It's almost like when you're suddenly you've gone off in a dream world, and you suddenly become aware that I'm still trying to make a cup of tea. Like you boiled the kettle, you're waiting for it to boil, you've gone off the dream about whatever, and you suddenly become aware that the kettle's boiled, and it's now time to pour it. So I can understand about how the brain lags. Whether you go into like a deep thinking mind state where you're in your head as opposed to you're out of your head, or chemically, whatever, you suddenly lose track of the present, and then you have that lag, as you said, where you think you've already done it, but it's just your brain hasn't realized that you've just done it. So that lag thing is something I've not heard before. So that is very interesting. I will be trying to think about that, because that also makes sense. End of the day, no one knows anything. There's many ways and things that there's many ways it can be possible, and it's not anyone's right or wrong. It could be all of those ways, some of those ways, or none of those ways, and you're never going to know, because you don't know if there's an afterlife or a past life. And it's like when people say, I feel like someone's stepping on my grave, and you get the shivers. Well, that might be true, but how about the windows open and it's cold? Or how about you just thought
Lots of things make me shiver, you know, like little dust particles sneezing makes me shiver sometimes. You know, lots of different things. I get shivers randomly, but I don't think it's necessarily someone stepped over my grave.
Yeah, like when I go for a wee sometimes, I get shivers. I'm like, well, why am I shivering now? I'm just going for a wee. So there's many times when you can get shivers, and they sometimes have no relevance, and sometimes they do. And you can think, okay, well, why is this relevant? And find all the reasons for and all the reasons against. And again, it just simple stuff like there's a cobweb in the toilet, and it's just like gone on the back of your neck, which is giving you the shivers. But the cobweb's so light that you can't feel it. So again, there's many factors of why something is, and nothing is ever just one way. It's like there's so many different forms of like ant species that it's not just like one ant, because in England they're like this big. You go around the world, there's so many different ants, just like there's so many humans around the world. And you go to like different countries, there's so many different like cows. Like they're not just the same cow as an English cow. There's different looking cows, and they taste different, and they moo different. They literally have a different moo. Like I was listening to the radio, I think it was Scott Mills or whatever, and they played like a German cow versus an English cow, and the moo was a different moo.
That's hilarious. But I think it's really fascinating how down the lines, because obviously it's like due to breeding how things changed, how the DNA changes and stuff. And I think it's fascinating how that is really heavily linked to environmental, so like where not environmental, more geographical. It's an environmental effect on the species, but it's different geographically, which I find fascinating. And how animals and species can adapt to different weathers and different environments, you know.
Like, for example, right, you see, I know many people who sound just like their dad, right? Or they sound just like their mum if they're female. I know so many people that they write just like their father did. It's like, well, how can you learn to hold a pen and write like that? Especially when you're taught to write at school. But then you think about how many, when you look at your friends' writing, no writing is ever the same. Everyone has a different, unique style of writing. But then you can look at someone's like father and son comparison, and you see it's identical. So you're speaking about how the DNA of cows affects like the vocal, like DNA affects the vocal ability of a human. Like, how can somebody sound exactly the same as their dad? Well, obviously the DNA is exactly the same. How come some cows in England sound the same, and versus the cows in, like, say, Germany? That's because the DNA of that cow, based on, where they are geographically, is different. Hence why the moo is different. So like if you think about it, how many friends do you know they sound just like their parents? And you think, wow, the vocal box must be made exactly the same, like a flute. If a flute is made the same size,
constantly that I sound exactly the same as my mum. Honestly, constantly.
Yeah, if you think about it, like a trumpet, if it's exactly, say, like 5 centimeters apart, then when you blow through it, it's going to vibrate the same way as it would on a flute that's also 5 centimeters apart. But if you've got like a bigger flute, like say 10 centimeters apart, more air is going to go through and it's going to make a different noise. So that's the same as someone's vocal cord. Your dad's vocal cord is going to be identical to yours or whatever, and it's going to make the same sound as if you're blowing through a flute. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it's the whole way of like how DNA forms with the chromosomes is so fascinating. And obviously this is one of the products of that, which I don't think I'll ever really get over, like how everything is just perfectly like made for this whole world and species. It's crazy.
Do you believe over time a cow is going to be able to like use a laptop? When you think about how apes have evolved from like just climbing branches, and their hands have evolved to human hands, can a cow hoof go to like, I don't know, a hand of some kind where it has fingers and it can use a device? When you think about how everything has evolved from the same cell organism.
So I'm not sure to that degree. I do think it's possible for animals to coexist and integrate with us and be able to do a lot of the things that we can do, but I don't think that will happen until humans can coexist and integrate with each other.
So there's no time in the distant future that a cow is going to be on a laptop or playing Xbox or playing Angry Birds on an iPhone?
No, I don't think so. Not in the near future.
And do you think
not in our generation?
And do you think parrots are gonna be able to understand the sounds that they are mimicking, rather than just mimicking the sounds? Like, at what point does a parrot understand and can have a conversation where, rather than repeating what you've said, it actually responds to what you're saying, like Alexa does? If Alexa can understand what you've asked it, can a parrot understand what you've asked it?
I think it can, absolutely, if you teach it to. And that's all it takes for any of this to be possible. If we actually try and teach these animals how to do these things. I mean, you see like videos of elephants painting and stuff like that.
Yeah. I saw that the other day.
Yeah. Animals are really, really intelligent, and I think humans forget that. And I think, we could totally teach parrots how to converse, definitely.
Like, you watch the elephant, right? He's using his trunk. He's drawing an elephant. Like, that means he has visualized that pattern, and he knows how to reenact that pattern. So his brain has taken an image of that pattern, and he's drawing based on what he remembers. Like, that's fucking crazy. If an elephant can use its trunk to draw an elephant, like, you think about how a parrot can easily learn to understand language, but language it's like, it's one thing mimicking a sound, but then understanding it is different. But then you think of a child, right? A child will mimic like mama. He's mimicking the sounds. He doesn't understand them, but then eventually he says the sounds, understands what they mean, and his brain remembers what it meant, and he can have a conversation. So technically, a parrot, or any animal for that matter, should be able to understand language, especially when you think about how squirrels communicate and dolphins communicate and birds communicate. They're just making sounds and noises and like cheep and like they recognize what it means, and then their brain stores that information and knows next time. So parrots should technically be able to. Parrots are the new Alexa. Rather than like telling Alexa to do something,
having a parrot in your house.
Yeah, like, rather than saying Alexa.
Yeah. Well, you could call your parrot whatever you wanted, but yeah, I think it'd be much more interesting. I won't have any type of like device like Alexa in my house. I am absolutely petrified of them. If that probably sounds ridiculous, I know, but I don't like the idea of this device constantly listening and relying on it for things like to turn out the lights, to order things and stuff like that. I don't know, just the idea scares me, and it's probably not the fact that it's technology, but the fact that it's changing so rapidly and we can do things like this. It's,
Yeah, like everything is going to be technology dependent, where you need technology to do everything, like electric cars, technology, turn on the lights, turn out the oven. Yeah, it's great if you can turn on the oven 20 minutes before you're home, which you will be able to do. The same as you can say, like, turn on the heating for this. But what happens when the power goes down, or Wi-Fi goes down, or 3G, like O2 have an issue like they did last year when O2, like everyone's phone went down?
What concerns me is there are much bigger things that rely on these power systems and energy, such as like security systems. What happens when all of the security, there's like a major blackout across London and everyone's security systems are down, all the shops, all the banks, all homes, everything. That's a scary thought. But yeah, I think we do rely on it a bit too much. And that's what's scary.
For example, right, as you're saying, technology is based on data, or like internet and whatever. So yeah, you might not have, for example, the password for the back door, but if you can find a way to take down the Wi-Fi or the 3G or the currents that like, what I'm trying to say, like if you can find a way to hack or take down or turn off the Wi-Fi or whatever, then you could malfunction the machine that's using Wi-Fi to keep the door locked, and then everyone will just literally hack in to all these buildings all at the same time if there was a malfunction of technology. Because if it's all run on thin air, you can find a way to take that down, then yeah, everyone's electronics will just unlock. Like, think about the Ring, for example. There was a hacker who was talking through the Ring to the kid in their bedroom. Like, all they did was sit outside on the car, and like, the Wi-Fi didn't have a password, and they could talk into the Ring. Now, it's not just about speaking to the child. You can see what's in someone's house. You can see if anyone's in. You can see where the laptop is, where the phone is, where the gold is, and the diamonds and the jewelry. And you can go straight to the bedroom and take out the jewelry, as opposed to like spending time trying to find it when the police could come. It's like when these celebrities, they show you around their house, like they show you around their homes. If I'm a burglar and I'm looking at Justin Bieber's house, I'm like, right, there's the bedroom, there's the staircase, there's the back door, that's where his shoes are, that's where his watches are. And I'm like, right, when Justin Bieber goes out, I'm going to go straight to the room. He's got a rug that's worth like 50 grand because it's a real like cow. He's got like this amazing like iPad or whatever. You can see exactly who you're going to burgle now because you've gotten inside to the house. Like Kylie Jenner, she got burgled. She posts Instagram photos of her stuff. You know what I mean?
And it's also easier to access where people are, like their current locations and stuff like that. People are constantly tapping into where they are, what they're doing. Like literally, some people every like 30 minutes, like 5 seconds. And it's worrying when people also include their children in that, like taking pictures of like posting pictures of their children on their first day of school in their uniform outside the school. So everyone now knows where your child goes to school. And things like people know where you're going to go for dinner and they know what you're doing for the evening for drinks. And it just becomes a lot more accessible for other people to just know where you are and actually what's stopping them from going there and, doing something. Not saying that a random person's going to find out where you are and come to you, but there's a lot of different reasons why someone might want to come to your location.
Absolutely. It's not just about whether your friends are going to do anything. If your friends have you on, for example, Snapchat, and they can see that you're out or whatever, they might know someone, or they might be with someone who's like a bad person, and they might share that information to that person or whatever, that you're not home, or situations like that, and then they can then go around and burgle you. So it's not like just because you haven't got bad people on your Snapchat, for example, doesn't mean you're safe, because it's just, situations that someone's looking at your phone and in a pub, and they can see that this person is here, and they can be like, oh, they've got money. He then texts his friends and says, listen, bruv, are you still in Wokingham or whatever? I've got a house you can go and have a look at, aka rob it, because he's seeing that person's not there. This location thing. Yeah, so Kourtney Kardashian, for example, she always posts her pictures, like, I think she said like half an hour later. Because if she posts if she does a Snapchat, people will know where she is, and they'll all come and pap her and, whatever. So she always does it later, and so she can get out of the way. But also because if she's out at that point when she takes a picture, then people are going to know she's out. So she makes sure she's home when then she posts them, which is a smart idea.
Yeah, I don't tend to post things straight away either. I think generally the same thinking behind it, really. I don't mind people knowing where I've been, but knowing where I am currently just doesn't sit right.
And there's an enormous power when people don't know where you are. Like, for example, your parents always want to know where you are, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's an amazing feeling of, you don't know where I am. And I feel powerful. Like people want to know where you are, or you feel free.
Powerful for me, it's more independence. I am my own person. I don't need to broadcast to everyone where I am all the time. We all have lives, and not everyone needs to know everything. I don't think. I think that's another issue of social media, is oversharing and overposting. I think people go on, sorry.
I find myself, when I'm on my phone unnecessarily and I become aware that I'm on my phone unnecessarily, I just put it down. And there's no right or wrong way to get over a phone addiction, because if you start thinking, okay, let me just do this first, then I'll get off it. Well, that's like saying, I'll just have one more fag, then I'll stop. That's not how it works. You just have to literally throw your phone under your bed, so now you can't get it. Okay, and it's so much effort to get your phone. Like, you have to take the bed apart, you got to lift it up. It just becomes so much hassle that you get so angry, and you think, fuck it, I'll just leave it there. And then you haven't fulfilled that feeling of, I need to go on my phone, because you've just like stopped yourself. Eventually your brain realized that I didn't need to go on my phone. And like, when you don't smoke, when you think about it, you didn't need to. And then your brain realizes, okay, remember last time you wanted to smoke and didn't? Well, this is the same. You don't need to. If you choose to apply action to that thought, you'll need to do it. But if you don't do it, you'll also be fine. And over time, that pattern will become more distant, where you don't need to do things immediately because you've gained control over your mind.
Yeah. So do you think then that there should be like groups that people could go to who are addicted to things like their phones, and also gaming? Gaming's a big one. It's a big addiction. But I don't think I've heard of any sort of like support for anyone who's addicted to these kind of things.
That's interesting.
I don't think there's any awareness either, really.
No, you think about like gambling addictions. Like, it's becoming like a big thing where governments are getting involved and telling gambling companies to, like, decrease their limits on stuff, because gambling is an addiction. But again, it's not the gambling, it's your brain not having any control over what you do. But you're right. You think about gaming. I think gaming is more of an addiction than phones, because when you're gaming, you're getting an instant like thrill over killing someone or scoring a goal. Whereas on your phone, you're like bored, flicking up and down. You're not getting like this massive boost of like serotonin. So actually, gaming, I think, is more addictive than phones. But you're right. There's no like counsel groups for phones. There's like cancer counselling groups, there's abuse counselling groups, there's gambling, smokers, alcohol, but there's no phone counselling groups, nor is there gaming. Because if you thought there's government sets up a gaming counselling thing, they're like, well, surely it's more better things you could spend your money on than gaming. But when you see how destructive gamers can get, for example, if it lags, and you see online videos where the guy smashes his Xbox on the wall, right? The anger kids have playing Xbox, it's nowhere near the same anger when they're playing on their phone or on Facebook. So you're absolutely right.
But
There's no groups for gambling. Gaming.
Yeah. I think you're right. I do think you're right. But I do think there is quite extreme levels of other emotions when it comes to phones. Especially, you see it a lot with depression. I feel like a lot of people use things like Facebook as an outlet for emotions that they're feeling in that moment. I don't know how many times you've seen this, but a lot of the time when I'm on Facebook and I see someone, I have someone on my list who's particularly not in a good place. They're constantly posting and updating what such a bad state they're in and all these bad things that are going on in their life. That are actually really quite hard to open up to and talk to somebody face to face. So I just wonder, like, why is it so easy to just put it up there where more people are seeing it rather than talking one-on-one with somebody? But yeah, I don't know. And how do you process what other people think about what you're posting? Like, what do you want to achieve about a post and something like that? Or is it just that release in that moment of what you're feeling?
I think it's more release in that moment, because if you look back at that post in a few weeks' time, whatever, you'll be like, Christ, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I put that out there. It's in the moment of just wanting to be heard or releasing a feeling. It's like a fart. You need to fart now. You can't hold it in and fart later. It's besides the point. When you are feeling rage or you need to be heard, you need to get it out there. It's like when you suddenly have it and like an overwhelming feeling of something, like excitement, you want to tell the world, or anger or pain, you want to tell the world. So I think it is more in the moment, because looking back, you don't want people to see like how destructive your life is. It's not an attractive thing, even though, you know, you're in pain, whatever. You don't want people to see weakness, because people can exploit it. So it has to be a thing in the moment. But I want to ask you, if, for example, you've got half people on social media posting about their happy lives and everything's great, half of them are like, I hate my life, blah, 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 I want to die, hate this cunt, why do fucking boys always do that? Are you somebody who'd want to reach out to that person and like try and care for them? You might not know them that well. In fact, the example is you don't really know this person. You met them out, whatever. They're not in your major friendship group. Are you somebody who would reach out to that person or unfriend them because that's affecting you, their negative energy? Everyone's got problems, but their negative energy and their pain is now making you you are becoming their pain. It's now affecting your mental health, and that negative energy is affecting you. Do you unfriend that person knowing that half the world is negative with problems, or do you reach out to that person knowing you're only going to become part of their problem?
Me personally, I would reach out to the person if it worried me. But if I didn't think it worried me, then I wouldn't unfriend them either. I just would ignore it. I would just keep scrolling past. But if it was something that I thought, oh, maybe this person needs somebody to talk to, I would give them a message.
At what point does it become you over other people? So, for example, if you're around smokers and it's affecting your health, at what point do you move away from them? If everyone's got problems and they're all talking on social media about all their problems, right, and there's just problem after problem and it's just going to be for the rest of your life, at what point do you cut ties with these people, knowing that these people are always going to have problems and it's affecting you, seeing all these people's problems which you think exist? It doesn't. It exists in the negative person's lifestyle. You create your life how you want it to be. If you want a positive life with harmony and everything goes right, you solve your problems. But if you look at all these people with their problems, it becomes part of your life, and you think that that's just life. Everyone's got problems, but it's not. It's what you focus on. What point do you realize, okay, I can't help everyone. I've got to think of myself. And unfortunately, someone like you is always going to have a problem, and you have to let them go.
Yeah. Well, it's a really difficult one to know when you're in a situation like that, because obviously you're only in the situation because you want to help. But yeah, it's hard to know when this point is, but I think before it's when you realise that it's affecting you. I think that's when it's time to walk away. When you notice that it's affecting you and you can't stop thinking about it, or you can't, it's actually genuinely, you can't get on with your day-to-day stuff. I don't think there's any harm in going out of your way and helping someone, but I think if it's going to completely diminish you, then you do need to step away. But I don't know, it's hard because you don't know where that line is, really. You don't know when something is grinding you down, and you don't know when to give up on that, because you might get that feel like a lot of people who want to help, sometimes they can't help, but they can't accept that they can't help.
Yeah, it's like, at what point do you stop giving to a homeless guy because you know he's going to spend it on alcohol? Like, you know that's what he's doing because he's saying that he's going to do it. But at what point do you stop, like, funding that problem? Like, if you keep responding to people when they, like, put something out there, it becomes about the reaction and how they feel they are being cared for, as opposed to solving the problem, which is if your boyfriend's abusive, do something about it. Stop posting it on Facebook. Yeah, there's always going to be people there to help you and talk to you, blah, 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 blah. But the problem keeps occurring because you keep being with him. You keep giving the homeless guy money. He keeps getting drunk, and then he starts pissing up pissing up corridors, whatever. So what point do you have to be like, fortunately, mate, I can't give you any more money. Fortunately, I can't always respond when you say, oh, I'm such in a bad mood, because you're not doing anything about it. Sometimes, like, you got to be tough. Like they say, you got to be you've got such tough love. Like,
tough love.
You can't respond to somebody, because then if no one's responding, there's no one there to listen to them, so they have to take action themselves. Like, you suddenly have to become independent when there's no one there to depend on, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that one's like a whole tin of worms itself, really. It's a hard one, because if a homeless guy chooses to spend his money on alcohol, who are we to really judge what he spends his money on? I mean, like, I don't know the past of every homeless person that I pass, and I don't know what they want from life, if they want to, go down the alcohol route or not. Like, you don't know unless you sit there and spend time with that person. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily down to us to decide when the line is to stop providing for them. Yeah, I think it's quite a controversial view, but I think if somebody wants to spend their money to make on, like, drugs or alcohol to make their night sleeping in the cold a bit easier, then that's your choice. I can't stop you from doing that.
Okay, let's just wrap this up. It's been about an hour. Do you want to plug anything? Any website, social media, podcast links, modeling website, whatever you do?
I've got my Facebook, Mimi Hatchery, and my Instagram, which is Mimi Creative Arts.
Okay, anything else you want to plug?
Don't be afraid to discuss. I think we're going a little bit backwards because everyone's scared to talk about things and everyone's scared to offend people, but we won't understand unless we talk to one another. Okay. I'm going to press stop recording and I'll speak to you after, okay? All right, awesome.